So this is Chris, one of my first students when I taught at Ferris in 2014. So a storied period of time ago. Chris, take it away.
Yeah. So yeah, thank you for having me at FragFest Spring 2026. Mel hit me up a couple weeks ago for the opportunity, and I obviously had to jump on it because anything game related, I gotta be a part of. So just a quick introduction. Obviously, my name is Chris Pannill. I am currently a lead artist at BODE Software based out of Maine. It is a small little indie studio, and as a lead artist, I take care of everything 3D, so not just character, although I'm a character artist. Because we are a smaller studio, I get to oversee everybody, all their 3D work. And like Mel just said, I was one of his first students. So I sat in the seat you're sitting in now. I've had all the same questions, all the same concerns, you know, what venue do I want to take? What do I want to do? You know, I always knew that I want to be a character artist, but I know that's not always the case. You know, because there are so many different classes in digital animation game design, from programming to vehicles and animation and everything, I would say that you should always approach each class with the same ethic, the same work ethic. Although my passion was characters, I still approached programming and vehicle design, storyboarding, all with the same ethic. Even though my passion was characters, I still took everything from those classes. And I would even go as far as to say that programming, I use that today. So even as far as programming as a character artist. So I use a lot of Maya now, and there's script writing. I think even ZBrush has script writing in it now. So even what I've learned in programming classes, I use now today. So just don't just blow through every class. Take every class seriously, especially when you're trying to find yourself. The struggle is normal, imposter syndrome is a thing, and all artists, including myself, have and do face it sometimes. You know, you see like a reference or this thing, or if Mel gives you a project and you're like, okay, how do I create that from a box or a sphere or a teapot? And you got to figure out, how to get there. But the more you put in the time, the more you put in the work, and you're going to hear me say that a lot. The more you put in the work, it will come, and you'll eventually learn all the tools, and it will feel more natural. You'll be more confident in the work you do, but it's part of the process. Totally normal. There are no shortcuts. I wish I wish there was a button to just retopple my whole model, but that doesn't exist. I mean, we have AI that can drive cars, but we don't have anything that can just simply retop my character. So I still got to spend a day or two to do that. There's no shortcuts. Also in the industry, there are no shortcuts from DAGD to your dream job. I know they had asked for the last speakers, how long did it take you to get your job? For me, it took about a year. If I graduated in 2019 and I got my first job in 2020, like right around COVID time. I'd actually got my first 3D modeling job. So after this short presentation, I hope to give you at least one thing to take away from it, even if that's like another question or curiosity to help drive your passion forward and take that with you after today. And I want to give you like honest expectations of what the industry is like in 2026. I know the industry is ever changing, and I hope I can at least give you some insight of what the industry looks like now. So Thinkomatic was my first 3D job. It was a company based out of Grand Rapids. And though it wasn't my dream job at the time, it was still a fun job. And, you can see the couch here. That was probably one of the most nightmarish projects I've ever had, and that's including NetherRealm. So even being a character artist at NetherRealm, this couch right here took months, I think even years, to finally get right, because Crate and Barrel couldn't decide if they wanted wrinkles on the cushions or not. So so at Thinkomatic, we were an outsourcing company, and so we did couches for Crate and Barrel. I've done little plushy $50 toys. Crate and Barrel makes toys too for kids. I've done that. I've worked for a company called Society 6, Kashiyama. They make like really high-end suits. Those are all clients through Thinkomatic, and I had a lot of fun doing it. Actually, there was something kind of calming about doing hard surface modeling. You know, even though I do enjoy characters and anatomy, I actually really did enjoy this job. And with that, I took, professional pipeline, everything I've learned at Thinkomatic, all transferred over. So anything hard surface modeling, and I'm a ZBrush cowboy, so I if I can do it in ZBrush, I do. You know, maybe that's not ideal in many cases where you could do, probably easier hard surface modeling in 3ds Max or Maya. I chose to do ZBrush, but regardless, everything I learned at Thinkomatic, I have taken on to my, my other jobs. I have taken on NetherRealm. So doing lots of desks and lamps and stuff at Thinkomatic, I still use the same techniques when I make like armor for a character. And those are things I wouldn't normally know unless I did it on my own. But when you're in that work environment, you're kind of forced to learn it, and then it just sticks, and you take everything, from one job to another. Absolutely. No work is wasted. So I threw this in here as like, when I worked at Thinkomatic specifically, sometimes you just kind of like go through the process, you make something, a couch or whatever, a base, wherever, a desk, and you kind of hand it off to the client, and then you don't really see it. It's not like a 3D print that's actually tangible, or a video game where you make a character and you're playing it. It's kind of like, you kind of feel like, well, is it really a thing? And I remember scrolling on my phone one time, and I had seen, it was an ad that popped up, and it was for a pair of socks that I had made for Society 6. And I actually thought that was really cool to see kind of my work out there in the wild without ever searching socks or anything. Like, my phone just thought I wanted to see some socks. It was something I did for Society 6, so I thought that was cool. Again, this kind of goes with professional discipline. Like, all the skills you learn at one place, even going back as far as DAGD, what you learn in school, it will compound, and just stick with it, and the job will come. So creating professional habits. So with this, I would say a couple little things that maybe people don't really talk about a lot to make good habits out of increasing your workflow efficiency. So for example, ZBrush, you can customize like your complete UI, hotkeys and everything. If I were to go in ZBrush right now, the default ZBrush, I would probably have a challenging time finding a lot of the buttons because I have had my custom UI for so long, my hotkeys for so long, it actually may be a challenge. So my point is creating these habits, but I can work quicker with my setup, so creating those habits. And another good one is learning naming convention. So at Thinkomatic, naming convention is important, and that transferred to NetherRealm, where, for example, if if I was doing Scorpion's mask, if somebody's doing scripts to find those models and they type in SCO_mask, they need to be able to pull all of those. So again, transferred skills. It's just, I stress that a lot. So this is an example of like a throw blanket that I did at Society 6. Don't worry, I'll get to the cool NetherRealm stuff too. But this is just, my journey to get there. So this example of a throw blanket of what we would do is take this entire scene is done in 3D, but the throw blanket has real life UVs. So that way, when you go to throw your image on there of you, your partner, and your dog, that it appears just as it would in real life. And a couple things. There was a project we had with Society 6 where discovering new workflows. I want to put that in here because they had just an image of a crew neck shirt, and we wanted to do the whole like 8x10 picture on the crew neck, but they didn't have it in 3D, which would have made it much easier. So I said, well, why don't I simulate the 8x10 sheet, put in the wrinkles to mimic the shirt, and then we can just place the image on that. And adapting skills, I have that in here because I asked that, why don't we do that? And then also I had to learn, because I present that, I had to learn Blender because on the back end, Society 6 used Blender with their site. So I had to learn Blender after presenting that. I was able to do all that, and it ended up being, worked out in the end. So it was pretty cool. So I wanted to add one more bullet to this. I think I was going to add portfolio, but it is very important to.
Hydrate. It's very important to hydrate.
Mhm. So portfolio is obviously the most important thing outside of networking. Your portfolio is the only thing between you and your job. It is what you present, and I would say it is essential to have. I would say to have 3 to 4 solid pieces in your portfolio, even 3 really good pieces, and the more you can show that you know what to do, the better it's going to be in the end. So when I applied to NetherRealm while I was working at TC, this was one of the pieces I had in my portfolio. And I mean, you'd think this is Shao Kahn. This is my take on Shao Kahn from Mortal Kombat 11. And you'd think, well, that'd be, a good piece, maybe. I don't want to toot my own horn, but it's not bad to maybe give me an interview. And if not that, then surely Spawn. Spawn is also Mortal Kombat 11. But this is actually what got me my job at NetherRealm. So, and the reason I found this out was because one of my buddies at NetherRealm, we would always talk after, a long day's work. We'd talk for a couple hours, whatever things. He's like, you realize that we hired you in because of your Nike outfit. I mean, really, he's like, yeah, because of your cloth skills. That's actually why we hired you. So I thought that was really cool. And that being said, a studio will hire you based on your skills, not the tools you use. So if you want to be a concept artist and you use Microsoft Paint, then they don't care what you use. At the end of the day, they want you for what they see on your portfolio, and whatever it takes to get there, that's all they want. They want your skills. Now, that being said, there may be some programs in the pipeline like Maya where they'll need, your model to go through Maya first for animations or blend shapes and then make it into Unreal Engine. But at the end of the day, they just want your skills. And that being said, building engine agnostic skills, I think, is very important to understand. And this gets said a lot. But let's say you study Unity for a long time, and then all of a sudden you go to a place that has Unreal Engine. Well, the tools are still there. You just need to know what button it is now. That's all it really is. Same with 3ds Max or Maya or ZBrush and Blender. Building those skills is definitely important. And so much so that my fiance actually reminded me that when I applied to NetherRealm, I had seen that they use a lot of Maya, and I never use Maya. I always use 3ds Max. DAGD will use a lot of 3ds Max. So I took the time to go through and learn all the tools in Maya, just so I was able to talk about it in my interview. And a step, because I put it in my resume, so I could kind of bullshit my way through it. I went through and learned Maya just for the interview, and I got the job. So tools is not the same as understanding. So for this particular project, I did the armor, I did the pants and everything, but I wanted to focus on the pants. And what I mean by tools is not the same as understanding. I really like the program Marvelous Designer. It is a program used for simulating cloth. And for this particular project, doing just the pants and cloth, it's easy to understand what tools do. In Marvelous Designer, you can select leather and make leather, or cotton and make cotton. But just by pushing the button isn't going to make it appear, the way it is now. I need to think about, okay, where's this character been? This is like an undead ninja. What has he been? Does he have like dried mud on his pants? Do his pants look hard? So I would take that into consideration. And if I didn't consider those things, then I would just be a Marvelous Designer and I would hit simulate, and it would just simulate. It'd be a well simulated piece of crap because I have no idea, what I'm doing. So, and Marvelous Designer itself isn't even the end all be all. I still take this into ZBrush and then further refine it. And that is because, again, understanding is not the same as just the tools themselves. You still have to understand what it is you're making, where has your character been, or so this is a character that when I was at NetherRealm, sorry, let me back up. When I was at NetherRealm, I was on the mobile team. So we were a smaller team, probably like 11 of us. And we worked on Mortal Kombat Onslaught. So I did many characters from Mortal Kombat Onslaught. And a lot of that was just retopoing existing characters from previous games. So this is Ashura from Mortal Kombat 1. And because it was a mobile game, we had to consider all of the phones that this will be on, even some older phones. So we really had a cap on the amount of verts, not polygons, verts, which is much easier to hit. And our cap was 20K verts per character. I had gotten Ashura under 10K verts, and Kingstone, one of the guys I work with, he had been there for 5 years, and he had told me that he was looking at my Ashura for the rest of his models because I, had done it so well. So I was given a goal, and I exceeded that goal. It made me feel really good, and the team appreciated that I was able to get it that low. So I thought that was cool that Kingstone went off with my model. For this project, this is actually a small project I was given by my lead, and this was just an NPC in our Outworld level for Mortal Kombat Onslaught. And the original model, I don't have a before picture, but the original model looked like a PS1 model. It was really bad. It was probably like in the hundreds for verts. And so Mike didn't even ask me to change the model. He just wanted me to update the textures so it looked better in the background. So in between projects, I took initiative and I completely changed the model as well as the textures. And again, it was something like I was given a goal and I did a lot more, and I was still efficient and did it in between projects. And again, appreciated by the team. So it's just one of those things where internal recognition, it's when you're already in the job, it's still important to establish, why you're an asset to the team. It's definitely important. So it's just why I want to focus on those. So this project was pretty fun. I was given Hiroyuki Tagawa's face, rest in peace, from Mortal Kombat, the movie, Shang Tsung. I was given his actual face scan, and then the image in the middle is the high poly. So I was asked to make a high poly. That's just my sculpt in the middle. I was asked to make a high poly sculpt of the face for a monk, and then the image all the way on the right. What I did was I took the bake from my high poly, all of the primary, secondary, and tertiary details, and then on a different layer, put Carrie's face on top, just to bring out some of those like details that you only get from a face scan, some of those, minor details. And granted, you could create that in Substance Painter, but we just wanted not a complete likeness, but we wanted to utilize some of the, scans that we had to, further enhance the look of the monk. So that was a fun project. So typically, when you work on, a character or even vehicles and stuff, this is typically what the workflow looks like. Reference, which it's like 85% reference, and then 15% actual sculpt retop on texture. That's pretty typical. But when you work for a smaller studio, it looks a lot more like this. So it'll still be getting your reference sculpt retopo, but there's added things. So you do have to wear many hats when you work for a smaller studio. And again, going back to the classes that you take in DAGD and understanding, that they all do go towards something, I had to recall my knowledge from my animated class to rig, skin, and blend shapes was that was something that I actually didn't learn in school. That was actually something to learn I had to learn on the fly. So blend shapes is similar to animating, but it's just animating birds. And within a couple of days, I had to learn how to create blend shapes and then, finally get an engine. So definitely if you're ever on a smaller team, you will have to wear many hats. So just understand that it's part of it. So this is pretty fun. I worked on Cyber Sub-Zero and Cyber Smoke. So my team leads had his stuff going on. the other senior artists I was working with had their stuff going on, so they entrusted me to work with outsourcing by myself because, you know, they knew I had the skills to do so and the communication skills. So, for example, for Cyber Smoke, I created some like the exhausts, some discs. I created a little like cube that measured like 3 centimeters, and I sent all these to outsourcing and communicated back and forth. They did the arms, the legs, I did the torso, the head, and we worked together that way. When the whole thing came together, it looked like it was supposed to, and all the pieces, you know, it mimicked across the whole thing, and it looked like not 3 different people made it. It looked like, you know, the same person made it, and the same for Cyber Sub-Zero. So it was a fun project, but yeah, so outsourcing, that's always part of it too. It's kind of in every studio. But yeah. So I do have many projects I have worked on that I cannot show. I have, you know, really cool like Dragon I did for NetherRealm full. I'm talking like from reference, pure ref to, you know, taking a sphere all the way to the end, put 72 joints in them, gave him animations. He had like fins that I did blend shapes for, kind of like an axolotl lizard where, you know, his face opens up. I did all of that, animations and everything. And then he just never made it in the game. So I can't show it. And there's a few things like that. And, you know, it's all fine as part of the process. And even if me and the people that worked on it are the ones that can talk about it, it was still, you know, still fun and still valuable. So personal projects, I think that this is, even when you have the dream job, it may not be mundane, but it's still one of those things where you do got to take the time to still make sure you maintain your passion, you know, turn on some lo-fi and just create the things that you want to create at your own leisure. And, you know, here's a couple examples. Like I enjoy anatomy. So the, you know, obviously the face on the right, just playing with, you know, wrinkles and just masculine structure. And on the left, I really, you know, enjoy just kind of learning all the names. So I went through and was practicing like the actual sutures, bones, and everything on the human skull. And you know, it may seem like a lot, but it's what I enjoy. But that, you know, whatever that may be, even if you do 3D, but on the side you'd like to use Procreate on your iPad, you know, and practice 2D or whatever that is. So obviously, networking can't be stressed enough. It is very important. I have a couple examples of networking. I'm not sure if you still do it, Mel, where you have students reach out to like 5, 10
I don't
people.
think they do the assignment. No, I don't teach that class, so I can't say.
Okay.
I think they are saved that pain and horror.
Okay. So yeah, so obviously when I was in school, we had to reach out to 5 people in the industry and ask them just questions and then, you know, present what we asked them and what came of it. And I had reached out to a senior character artist at NetherRealm at the time. And he was really cool. He replied like in paragraphs, just you know, replied to all my questions. And him and I had built so much rapport, I actually had to leave Mel's class one time just to catch a phone call with him. Obviously, Mel's like, yeah, of course, go ahead. So I did that, and then we set up another phone call. We talked for an hour and a half, and then we set up a time to meet in Chicago. So I drove down to Chicago. We met at a Chili's, and we talked for like 4 hours about the industry. It was really cool. Solomon Gayton is his name. He's the one who did like the Ninja Turtles for Injustice and a bunch of cool stuff. And now he has moved on to BODE Software. So he just worked on Doom, the Dark Ages. So that's great. And that is, you know, a contact that I'll always have. Another example was, his name was Ian Nod, also a character artist at NetherRealm. And while I was at NetherRealm, I was at their launch party for Mortal Kombat 1 and Onslaught. And I heard the name Ian, and I asked Kingston, like, is that Ian Nod? And he said, yeah, how am I going to say hi? And I showed him, and I pulled up my messages from like 7 years ago, and, you know, it kind of made both of our days. He's like, oh man, so like it comes full circle. So, you know, it's not for nothing. And those are 2 contacts. I've messaged them both on separate occasions, and those are 2 contacts that I'll always have. You know, and, you know, that being said, going back to Thinkomatic, one of the reasons that I got into there was because I was in school with Tyler Kunick. I don't know if you remember Tyler. And he had already been there for a while. And at the time, I was all through college, I was a nurse's aide actually for 9 years. But anyways, I was pretty much at my end with that, and I'm like, hey Tyler, you got anything open at Thinkermatic? And he's like, yeah, let me talk to the man. And Matt was like, yeah, we can get you in. So I straight up got at Thinkermatic because of who I knew, not what I knew. Matt barely looked at my portfolio. He's like, you know Tyler, okay, you're in. So that's how I got that. Yeah, networking is just very important. So this is a part that I definitely want to share with you. I think it is important to still cover the reality of the industry. I know, it would be nice if it were all, butterflies and rainbows, but it's not. And I don't want to discourage anybody or, deter anybody from their passion. But in 2024, there were a lot of layoffs in the industry, and I was one affected by that. And that was where my, journey had ended with NetherRealm. And it was bad enough to the point where even my lead, Mike, who had been there since '98, he had gotten let go. And it was unfortunate. He was on vacation, and I was actually the one to relay that message to him. And but a lot of people were affected, and it's part of the industry. It's not to, again, discourage anybody. If you put in the work and you do the stuff, it will happen. And I've found things since then. Right now, I am a manager at my local gym, and I did mention I am working at BODE. I am working at BODE unpaid. So right now, I've been with them for like some months now, but we have, a really cool project we're working on. It's actually on Steam to add to your wish list if you want to add to your wish list. It's called Shadows of the Lost. It's kind of like Norse mythology meets Elven. It's a Souls-like game. But yeah, so I'm doing that, and the reason I'm doing that is because I'm passion driven. Being a gym manager is not my dream job, but it's something that I have to do to provide for myself and my fiance. And if I want to make money, I got to do something. But that doesn't stop me from doing my absolute passion. In the moment that BODE goes through, then I will no longer probably be a gym manager. But it is the reality of it, and sometimes it does happen. But again, I don't want to ruin anybody's passion and their dreams. So if there's anything I want to end this on, kind of said it before, but playing is not the same as designing. So because you probably really enjoy playing video games, in fact, it's probably what got you into game design. That's not the same as actually doing the designing. So because I like Mortal Kombat, I chose to work for NetherRealm. That was always a passion. I did meet that, which was fantastic. But just being able to play as Sub-Zero and those combos doesn't mean that I can make Sub-Zero. That's now. It's where you put in the work. You need to definitely separate the two and understand that they are not the same. I love eating food, but I can't put on an apron and just go to the Blue Cow and go in the kitchen and start making food. There's degrees for that. You need to understand that the two are different. Also stated previously, when you at Stardock, the woman who knows a lot of people at they work at Assassin's Creed. Like, so the speaker already knows people who know people at Assassin's Creed. The example picture of Kevin Bacon is, I'm not sure if you're familiar with the 6 degrees of Kevin Bacon, which means somebody that knows somebody that knows somebody that knows somebody that knows Kevin Bacon. Well, in the game industry, it's more like 2. So you really have to, make sure you're on your best behavior, make sure that you have, a good name for yourself. No, but just you're already, the moment you get in, you're already known. And that will carry with you from each studio you go to. So just keep that in mind. And that's also a good thing. So like I have Solomon, I have Ian, I have Mike, I have many contacts in NetherRealm. So that's already established, and they all love my work. The layoff had nothing to do with my work. It was just part of the process at Warner Brothers. So definitely hold on to those networks. And finally, put in the work. Just just, if you just put in the work, you will land a job, even if it's not your dream job right away, it will be a job. And, you know, you'll eventually, I do believe that you eventually will get that dream job, or you'll find something along the way. Like, there's no doubt about it. It just, you know, but you have to put in the work. Like, if you were to apply for a job tomorrow at your dream job, you won't get it, you know. You could try, but I could also try and chop down a tree with this monitor. It probably won't happen. So just put in the work and it will happen. And these 3 takeaways are things that I all learned from Mel himself. So I wanted to throw those in there. These are things I learned from Mel, not the industry itself. And yeah, I'll open the floor.
You have the Discord window open so you can see chat stuff if you have questions through chat, because they won't have voice power like we do.
Yeah.
And yeah, question and answer. Hands up, do the things, ask the questions. That's why you came.
Yeah.
What's your favorite MK character?
Huge Saiba.
Nice.
Saiba.
So as of the situation right now with the game design industry, as a 3D character designer, what do you think is the best way to stand out in a saturated market?
Repeat the last part again.
Yeah, so
Stand out.
so how to stand out in a saturated market in 3D character design? Because right now there's a lot of people trying to become a 3D character designer. So what is the best way to stand out in the crowd?
So it seems to kind of be like that for character artists because, you know, it seems like everybody wants to be one. So I understand I was in like the same position.
Yeah.
Let me ask you, do you have like a game you're passionate about? Like if you could pick a game that you'd want to create characters for, or
Yes, I do. I think it'll be Cyberpunk 2077.
Okay, okay.
More realistic, semi-realistic characters.
So I would start there. I would start there and make your characters seem like they could fit in that game. So if you like realism, then lean into that. You know, don't spend your time like making characters that look like they go into Fortnite. I would focus on the characters that will fit in 2027 100%.
Is it better to make like a different concept art for the character that will be fit into that game world, or do the straight up character from that game and try to recreate it?
So I would say, you know, for example, the shell con that I showed was very close likeness to MK11, but at the end, it wouldn't really matter. In fact, I would almost encourage you to do something a little different because then they can see your creativity and that you can take something totally different that even they haven't thought of and you can make it look like it fits in their game. So that shows that you can take something new, which is what you'd get if you worked there. You'd get a new concept, not an old concept, and you can make it fit into that realm. I would absolutely make your own variation. You'd have more fun.
To back up on that, something I talk about in classes quite frequently is that you're exercising 2 sets of skills there, right? Very, very few times in the industry, if you're at a large company like CDPR, are you gonna be able to design a thing and make it? So if that's really kind of like your passion, if that's what you want to hit for, find some designs that got chucked. Find some concept out of characters that didn't get made. And don't stress over making necessarily your own necessary thing. Like maybe you put a spin on it, you change the material, whatever, that's fine. But you really want to lock in on hitting their style. And if you give them something they've already kind of seen and go, okay, that looks indistinguishable from Idris Elba from Phantom Liberty, like that's amazing, then they know you can do it. Whereas if you're practicing the design side of things, and I see this a lot with student work, it's like, oh, the design's middling, and they really well executed a middling design. Had they used a design that had already been industry proven, it probably would have showcased their skills more. So I think to Chris's point, finding a thing that exists, drill on that, make it look indistinguishable from their stuff. And if you want to add a little spin, cool, but I wouldn't spend a great deal of time on the design side of it unless that's your whole bag. And if it is, then the 3D thing isn't really even like a big deal. You're gonna make some look dev models maybe, but a lot of it's just illustration. And I think a lot of folks, even in hard surface, get confused that way, thinking they have to make their own whole unique thing. And it's like, yeah, you can if you're shooting for a design gig, but if you just want to get in as a character guy and eventually put your own spin on it, that's great. But like I say, drill in on that thing. If you had done just some character that wasn't Mortal Kombat related, that you invited your own guy, You'd be like, okay, cool, and again, he got hired for a shirt.
Yeah.
We're like, his cloth rocks, like, get this guy for a position, let's go. So, my 10 cents.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
Okay, so I can only see the chat. So the question is, how do layoffs usually work? Do they tell you in the face, or HR tell you about it? So to be honest, my layoff specifically was so high up at Warner Brother that Kingstone I talked a lot. I keep saying his name. I had other artists I worked with too. But Kingstone messaged me and he said, "Hey, did you kind of hear what's going on?" And I said, "What do you mean?" He's like, "Well, they're talking about potential layoffs." And within minutes, pretty much everybody found out like a whole limb of NetherRealm was getting hacked off. And that included Mike, who had been there for, 26 years at the time, worked on Mortal Kombat Deadly Alliance for PS2. So in every case, it's probably different. In my case, it was like I found out that day and I set down my pen. That's how quick it was, you know. But in other cases, hopefully you can get more of a heads up. I didn't, so I guess you could say it was worst case scenario. But I made it work. So.
Got a hand up, you're not reading chat. If you got a chat thing, that's cool, otherwise.
I was reading, it doesn't seem like it's a question.
What's that?
Is there a hand up?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
So, did you guys do like the Capstone project? And then if so, like what sort of was your goal with that, I guess?
Capstone?
Yeah, like
Yeah, your end project,
Okay.
I recall quite well.
So, so my capstone, are they still doing where you need a group?
No, you could do either or.
No? Okay. So while I was in school, they were trying to get people to do a group thing because there had been some people who went solo, but I don't know. Jake said that some girl made a paper mache horse.
She got a job at Disney too. It's terrifying.
Okay. Well,
Freaking
because of
Bernie
her,
got a job, it was horrifying. It stunned all of us.
yeah, because of her, they really wanted us to have like partners, but I was able to usually talk my way out of stuff like that. So I really stood on, well, what if I create 2 full characters and I had made Scorpion and Sub-Zero, and then I went further to 3D print them. That way I could demonstrate 2 skills. 1, that I can make characters, model characters, and their likeness. And 2, I can make it in such a way where it is 3D printable, so that I was like automatically learning new skills, because making something 3D printable is, not the same as just making a character game ready. So does that answer your question? Okay. Yeah, go ahead.
Could you give me a little bit, so you were a lead at one point. Could you tell me a little bit about how the communication channels were and kind of just how the daily experience was?
Yeah, so I'm currently a lead at BODE Software, and the daily communication, we have weekly meetings, so we'll have somebody working on like an ice axe or something like that, and I'll look over it and then give feedback, and then also I work closely with the art director, so a little bit different role there. So as the lead artist, I kind of make sure like everything kind of funnels through me, and I make sure everything's running smoothly, and that's like character, because it's a small studio, that's characters, props, environment and stuff. It kind of funnels through me. I make sure everything's looking good, and then present it to the art director, who, if they kind of have any tweaks or make sure like everything else is all going in the same direction, it's like the second funnel. But yeah, we have weekly meetings, and I just kind of make sure all the assets that come to me look like they're in the same universe that's going to fit in our game. Does that answer your question?
Thank you.
What do you think, so this is a question from Derek, what do you think would be a good balance with your portfolio with studied projects like IP character studies and your own passion project characters? I think Mel and I were kind of talking about this a little bit. So in my case, I was very determined and passionate to get a job at NetherRealm. So I had like 3 characters in my portfolio, all of likenesses that were from Mortal Kombat. So my Shao Kahn was a straight up likeness from Mortal Kombat 11. My Scorpion Sub-Zero was a variation, but still very close to the Mortal Kombat 9 Sub-Zero. And my Scorpion was another variation of Mortal Kombat. So slight variations. I would say the Shao Kahn was more likeness. And then the other things in my portfolio at the time, I had like Spawn, like a Grim Reaper. It might even still be in my station. I had like a Grim Reaper character and the Nike outfit to demonstrate my skills. So I would say an equal balance of both. But if you're looking for a specific studio, I would lean heavily into, you know, what you think they want to see. If I had like 2 Mortal Kombat characters and then like 5 cars in my portfolio, I probably would have gotten looked over much quicker because they would think my passion is in cars. I hope that answers your question.
What was your greatest challenge and how did you overcome it?
What's an interview question?
Probably the couch and no. My greatest challenge, I would say, I'll try and stick with NetherRealm specifically. My greatest challenge, I don't know. I would say it wasn't so much challenging as it was like motivating to learn something new. So for example, learning blend shapes, it's something that like I'd never done in DAGD. And it's similar to animating, but it's something where you use keys and you key out like the vert location and like a face, and you make like different expressions that the designers will then use in Unreal Engine to, you know, have them like talk or do whatever. So I would say that was pretty challenging, and to overcome it, you know, spending after hours learning how to do blend shapes, you know, I have no problem taking time outside of work to learn more. It all means, you know, I just get to enhance my skills and learn more about game design. That is what I'm passionate about. So.
Yeah, very effort driven.
Yeah. So that's I doesn't look like I have any further questions.
That one more.
Go on here.
Yeah.
How, on average, how long would you say it takes you to model a character from start to finish?
Start to finish, that's a good question. From start to finish, I would say from, let's say concepting's done, you get the concept art. I would say 8 weeks is like a solid range, and that's from, you know, sculpting, maybe even a little bit less if they give you, and a lot of studios do give you a base mesh to start with, so you don't even got to do it from scratch. But I have had to do, you know, both. I would say 8 weeks, give or take a couple weeks, depending. It could be a little bit more. What usually takes the longest is assuming that you have all the skills, you know, you're out of college, you have all the knowledge to make your character. Assuming that's true and you can just crank out a character in, you know, 6 weeks. What takes the longest is the revisions, it's the back and forth, you know, and that'll always happen. You know, the lead will be like, well, what about this? And it won't be nothing towards like your skills, like you did everything that was asked, but they'll be like, that's not looking right. Let's try and do this, or change out the mask or whatever. The tunic or something, let's try something different. And it's the revisions that'll make it go like another month or more sometimes, you know, especially if you're kind of in between and, you know, the project is a ways out and you can afford that time. And yeah, the lead and you might be having fun with it at that point. You might drag it out a couple more weeks because you can. But yeah, I would say on average, a solid number would be like you could kind of chart out what 8 weeks would look like from starting in ZBrush and ending in Engine.
Thank you.
Okay, so we do have another question. This one's from Samantha. You mentioned that working at a smaller company, you may need to do a lot more than just one particular thing. Does that apply to programmers? having to do modeling and such. No, I would say no. Programmers pretty much have their programming to do. I would say there's not any crossover in that realm really. Like I said before, I do appreciate that I had to take programming in school. Like I said, now getting into scripting in Maya, it definitely helps my workflow. You know, I made some scripts now where I can just like click a button and it'll just put my model in the 0 to 0 space, get rid of all the history, clean up, you know, smoothing, and just do all the things in one click of a button. So I've had a lot of fun with that, but that's because that's something I do to help my workflow. But as far as a programmer ever needing to touch ZBrush, that'll probably never happen. That would be you're making an indie. It's just you. Something probably.
Questions here too.
Ask a question.
From your experience, what would you say the pros and cons of working with both, like between the two of them, a big industry game studio versus an indie game studio are?
So the pros and cons, I would say pros, I do enjoy working with a smaller team. So both teams are fairly small because NetherRealm, I was on the mobile team, you know, again, there were probably 11 of us. And at BODE, there's, you know, maybe 20. So I think the pros of that are you kind of know everybody. So, and everybody in the game industry is really cool. So, you know, when you finally get a job, everybody, you know, loves what they do and you all have something in common instantly. So I would say that's just a pro anywhere you go. A con, I don't know, I wouldn't really say there's a con. There's always that little part where it's like, you know, I'm passionate about Mortal Kombat. And there's always that little part of me that's like, man, I would like to do a character for Mortal Kombat 1, you know. That would be really cool. But I wouldn't say that's a con as much as like, you know, a passion. So I don't know. The game industry is just really fun, or the 3D industry, you know, in general really is fun. And I'm sure these guys would say the same about working at GM. It's a good environment. So I don't really have any cons, you know, even if there really isn't any drama or nothing like that. Everybody's really cool. So I think it's all pretty much pros. I hope that answers your question.
Thank you.
My question is, if it's not a secret, what is your workload on creating realistic looking eyes for the characters? Because eyes are the biggest, like one of the biggest add-ons to the character. So what is your workflow on creating those realistic looking eyes for the character?
So just referencing real life, like if there's any part, including an eye, I don't have my portfolio or anything, but for BODE actually, I did create a realistic eye, and I took, you know, a couple hours to kind of study what the eye looks like, and then creating the, you know, the iris and the pupil and all the different parts that go into it. But now there are a lot of tools, and there's like MetaHuman and a bunch of things where you can just click a button and make a cool eye.
Yeah.
But for, I would say for any part, use references, and there's so many references. Like, I mean, you can YouTube like how to make an eye, or get on Pinterest, or you know, anything really, Gumroad. There's a lot of different tools.
Yeah.
But for that specifically, yeah, I would just study it. You know, if you're asking like how I go about doing it,
Yeah.
It's just that I studied the part, and then I create the thing just like, you know, it should like look like.
And does do you create the textures from scratch, or?
So I did this eye project,
Oh.
and it's funny because I wanted to do it, you know, and again, I had the time, so I wanted to do it, you know, say I did it, you know. But that being said, there are some tools. I mean, there's like plugins in Blender where again you can just like generate an eye and it just looks like a badass eye. But I was actually talking to Kingston from NetherRealm like a couple months ago, and I told him what I did. He's like, man, he made fun of me because like, you know, you can just like click a button in MetaHuman. I'm like, I know, dude. I want to do it.
Yeah.
Just to say I did it.
I think as an add-on to that, Murad, one of the things that he's bringing up that's interesting there is that the solution for an eye is different based on the studio you're in. So some places will have just a single piece of geo, other folks will have
Yeah.
a cornea, the internal part, another part for just glint.
Yeah.
Maybe a part for something else. So again, if you're trying to match a style, figure out how they've done it.
Yeah.
And to Chris's point about like how MetaHuman does what it's gonna do, you can go in and tune that stuff, or if you can build to spec, so it'll actually read fax file format, you could build an eye for your character that's not just a bunch of sliders, but you know will work there. That shows a skill to say, oh, I can make associate assets for this system that's already in Unreal, and my stuff works and integrates just as well as theirs does.
Yeah.
So if you reverse engineer what's already there and can build custom stuff that fits it, that's another skill to say, look, I can fit in the pipe, I just did it. I've got pieces that are there. The same thing for like if you take a custom character you've built and again, build it to spec for fax and can get it in MetaHuman, say you do a self-portrait and get yourself in there and be like, that's me, the artist, as a MetaHuman. I did all these various things to do that. For places that might use that tool, again, it's just one way to say, look, I can integrate right into what you're doing. I don't know that something like the specific, say like a mouth bag or teeth or whatever have you,
Yeah.
is gonna have a specific industry answer. It's nearly all per studio. So that's something that you, again, if you can ping people that are there, or worst case, tear a character out of the game and tear it up on your own.
Yeah.
That's where a lot of learning happens.
Mhm.
Just be like, oops, Ninja Ripper, ka-chang, and then figure out how they built it.
Yeah, thank you.
This isn't a question, but Jessica said, Chris, no question, but I interned at TC next to your desk and now work at Crate and Barrel. We still use your sectional models.
Yeah, the couch lives on, baby.
Okay.
I think we have one question here too.
So I'm actually a student taking portfolio right now, and the assignment we have is to actually still reach out to in-industry professionals.
They do it.
So
All
I was
right.
actually hoping maybe afterwards if we could connect.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, just yeah, when we can chat afterwards, and my art station's always open. Yeah, if anybody else wants to.
How much time outside of classes while you were in college did you put into like passion projects or just practicing modeling and just getting better and like enhancing your skills?
I put in quite a bit of time. Like I'll be honest, like I said, you know, even when Mel asked me if I wanted to, you know, come here and speak, and I want to jump on that opportunity because anything that has to do with games or game design, I always do. And Mel knows this, you know, as a student, you can kind of get a feel of the people like kind of in your class, like who's here because they want to be, who's here because they just want to play. And that's just the truth. And Mel always took me seriously in school. And to answer your question, I took a lot of time in my personal time to make sure projects were. I remember one project, Mel, I can't remember what the assignment even was because you had asked us to do one thing and then I had created a whole like room. And then Mel had pulled me aside in his office and he's like, I want to see your files, not because I don't trust you. I just, you know, kind of protocol formality. And I showed him the files that I did everything, you know, that way I wasn't stealing anything. So, you know, it made me feel good and, you know, I'm sure it made him feel good. Yeah, so I would do the extra, you know. But he took me seriously and, you know, sometimes I even kind of got away with turning stuff in late, but he knew I did the work, you know, so. I was also using a potato as a laptop, so you should definitely start rendering a week before. Yeah, anything else? I don't think there's anything else.
We could wrap up with the question we got in the room and then we're probably good.
All right, yeah, go ahead.
So I know luckily we have ZBrush on all the lab computers, but for someone who wants to work on like a laptop or something who can't afford to purchase ZBrush, do you have any recommended free or cheaper softwares for sculpting?
So at the time, I would have said just find your closest friend who's really into torrenting.
Really?
But
good.
but now again, going back to engine agnostic skills, I would over 100% try and learn something like Blender. Blender can do you know, a lot of the same things. You know, I haven't made that step yet. I've had to do Blender for projects, but not the sculpting part. 100% take the time to just learn the tools, and if you can learn the tools in Blender, you know, there's a lot of resources like YouTube and anything that will compare, you know, Blender and reverse engineer that. You know, it'll be like somebody, you know, there might be a video where it's like moving from ZBrush to Blender. Okay, well, watch that video, but reverse engineer it to where you can do the work at home on Blender. And just, I mean, it's the same thing, just kick out FBX, OBJ, then bring it in and finish working on it here. And it's all the same. I know they used to try and keep labs open, you know, quite late for students.
We're
but-
24 hours now.
Oh, okay, well, there you go.
You can get it whenever you want.
There you go. But if you can't, I would definitely say, you know, learning a program, there's nothing wrong with that. I wouldn't recommend trying to sculpt in, you know, 3ds Max or anything else you have at home. But Blender is free and 100% I would recommend.
Additionally, another piece of that is Nomad Sculpt, which is an iPad app,
Yep.
but now has a Windows version. It is amazing. Like, it is stupefyingly cool.
They have a
And it's a
Windows
one-time buy. Like, you pick it up, that's it, you're done. $50 out the door, that's it for life.
version. Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Windows version now. So
Yeah, and you can jump right in the old Cintiq and go to town. Basically the same thing. And it's effectively like a sculpting version of like Marmosets. So you can put game resolution renders out of it, kick on materials that are PBR materials, which the material system in ZBrush to this day still blows. So it is what it is. Yeah, Nomad Sculpt's pretty good stuff. And to back up Chris's point, if you're below like sub 10 million polys or so, you can get pretty good sculpting inside of Blender. I've seen a lot of folks do it. But if you start to hit like 100, 150 million, it just chokes and pukes because it can't do it. It's not built to. Additionally, you can do voxel sculpting in 3D code. It is a very competent sculpting process as well. It's just something that we don't teach in class because I can't teach you 16 softwares in a semester. How weird. Just how it goes. Well, thank you, Chris. Appreciate it. And talk. Thank you everyone for coming. We go ahead and